Bitcoin and cryptocurrency would probably represent the first real threat in over 100 years to these organizations. The same can sort of quasi be said for the marketing space. It's like, yeah, you can focus on client results, client success, systems. You can focus on sales and all these things. All of them are good things. But the crux of the issue is if you don't have any clients, you don't know how to get clients, and you cannot figure out how to get them to pay you, you don't have a business.
Hey, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Perfectly Mentored. I'm your host, Jason Portnoy. On this episode, we got Taylor Welch. And if you don't know Taylor, he is the CEO and founder of 5 multi-8-figure brands ranging from online services to real estate to staffing. He's advised and serviced nearly 50,000 individual businesses globally and took his real estate investment company from nothing pretty much to 8 figures in 10 months. He currently focuses on 2 things, and that is building your wealth and things that are fun. And luckily today, he's going to be giving us a lot of that advice on this episode. So you're not going to want to miss this one. Check it out. Taylor, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
It's great to have you. And look, I think this is going to be a fun one because there's so many places I want to take this conversation. But we got to begin. We got to start with doing one, and you're doing a lot. So let's start here because I think we need to start somewhere. Obviously, tell me a little bit about your background and your entrepreneurial journey because you've done so much now. But I want to know what led up to it.
So I grew up in the South United States, Louisiana, to be exact. And I just always, my first career goal, this is actually funny because my I don't remember this. My mom told me stories later, was I wanted to be 2 things in life. Number 1, I wanted to be a preacher. And number 2, I wanted to be a cowboy. And so I decided to be a cowboy preacher. So I was the first cowboy preacher of all time. I think I have the record for that. Nobody else has done it. But I achieved
the first and last cowboy preacher.
The first and last, exactly.
There you
it's kind of a weird hybrid industry there. But I got on staff. I went through high school and college and got into music, and I loved music. I actually quit my high school basketball team so that I could join the worship team at my church full time. So this is kind of where you can tell where my head's at. And I joined staff at a church in Memphis, Tennessee. And I got my dream. Like I was a pastor, a worship leader. And it was fascinating to me that as soon as I got that dream, I decided it wasn't my dream anymore. And it's funny how many people can relate to this. And I'll travel and speak and I'll talk to people and I'm like, how many of you have achieved something you thought you always wanted to achieve and realize it was the wrong dream? And it's like 90% of people I feel like can relate with me on that. And so it started a transition, a cascade of events for me that led me to the real estate world. I started doing property management. This is 2012, 2013, around that time. And I also started learning copywriting because my wife was a hairstylist and she owned a salon and she wanted new clients. And so I was like, I think I can figure this out. If I don't want to do music full time anymore, but I can learn marketing because marketing is creative and it uses that same side of your brain. And we sent out a direct mail campaign. This is actually, people can't believe that this happened. Like I borrowed $200, $300 to buy a direct mail list, send a direct mail campaign to Cordova, Tennessee, which was kind of like, if you look at the zip code of Memphis, it was a little bit more of they had more money, the per capita income. My wife got a couple clients and I was like, yo, if I can get her enough clients, I will quit my real estate job. I will stay at home and I'll do nothing. That was my goal. I wanted to quit my job. I needed to replace about $28,000 a year with my wife's salon income. But the more I got into it, the more I got hooked. And I was like, I'm not going to sit at home. This is amazing. And from there, the rest is kind of history. I went down the rabbit hole of marketing and advertising and sales and how the internet is changing marketing. And we started Traffic and Funnels with my business partner in 2015. And since then, there's half a dozen brands. It's funny, we went full circle and I went back into real estate once I had money, which let me tell you is a different experience. Working in property management is one version of real estate. Going back and buying houses and developments as an investor, completely different experience. I much prefer the latter. And so now we have 2 investment companies. We have multiple SEC funds. We have sales staffing company, marketing, advertising consultancies. We have media buying agencies. And it's just, I'm playing the game and I'm having a blast. And that's kind of what led me here.
I love it. And with traffic and funnels, right? You taught people. I mean, I remember I got into the online advertising space around 2015. So a couple of years after you. And I remember when you guys launched and your whole thing was, getting online clients, getting clients. Do you feel the landscape's changed dramatically since you first launched?
It has. But at the end of the day, the main bottleneck for somebody working with clients is, do you have clients or do you have a way to get clients?
Yes.
People try to change industries all the time. And one of the things I've learned from studying private equity and getting into banking and hedge fund territory is there's a level of stability that comes from the basics. And at the end of the day, we'll see what happens with Bitcoin and crypto and all of these things, but people still need a place that they can transact with money. And so there's not a lot of real threats to Bank of America. There's not a lot of true threats to JP Morgan Chase. Bitcoin and cryptocurrency would probably represent the first real threat in over 100 years to these organizations. The same can sort of quasi be said for the marketing space. It's like, yeah, you can focus on client results, client success, systems. You can focus on sales and all these things. All of them are good things. But the crux of the issue is if you don't have any clients, you don't know how to get clients, and you cannot figure out how to get them to pay you, you don't have a business. So the landscape has changed, but the territory has not. If that makes sense.
No, of course. And I think it's funny because I think going back, right? If you go back to the 2015 era, I think it was a lot easier, right? I think businesses have been spoiled, seeing, the $1 in, $5 come out, type of thing. And, things that you've taught, things that I'm very passionate about building the foundations. No one ever wanted to talk about that, right? Things were good. I don't want to learn how to build foundations or how to optimize or how to systemize and do all those things. Now things have changed and people need to start going back to the foundation. So I want to kind of throw that question back at you. What are the foundations, the tried and true in your mind that hasn't changed, won't change, regardless of what's going on in terms of landing clients?
So it's gotten harder than it was for one particular bubble in the internet, which is like your internet marketing gurus.
Yeah.
It has not gotten harder in any of the other like domains of running a business. I think that when people kind of like, you've got to be realistic about what businesses go through to grow. Real estate, we put $1 in and we make 10 cents for the first year, 12 cents the next year, 15 cents the year after that. And after 6 years, we recoup the money. Okay. And then you got these gurus who are like $1 in, $5 out. It's like, that's not how businesses typically run. You've got SaaS products who put $1 in and they lose $17 for the first year. They lose $13 for the next year. You see what I'm saying? Like, this is a business model kind of evolution. And I think when I look at the scope and the breadth of the market right now, what I see is a lot of business owners who are very, very, very conditioned to a crypto level returns, when it's like, you're not necessarily investing, like you're day trading. And there's a difference. Don't call yourself an investor when you're a day trader. It's fine. There's no judgment, no shame, but call yourself what you are. I think we see the same thing with your stand-up entrepreneurs who are running mom and pop, $1 in, $6 out. It's like, you're not really a business builder. What you are is you're a genius with 1,000 helpers. That's what you are. And that kind of goes back to your good to great and some of those philosophies. We'll put what the game for us is, we'll put $1 in and can we make 50 cents back? Because it's not about the SLOs or the self-liquidating offers. We want to pay an amount of money to create the start of a relationship, serve that person, over deliver for that person. And then through the process of time, that person ends up buying more things because the first thing they bought worked and they want to buy something different. And so Dan Kennedy talked about this way back in the day. He was way ahead of his time. You make a sale to get a customer. You don't get a customer to make a sale. Make sense?
Yep. No, I totally agree. Uh, it- and I think, just listen to what you're saying. I think most people miss that, right? Because the back end is where all the money's made, right? If you're looking at funnels, right? If you're looking at selling something online, it it's now gotten so hard to acquire the customer such that at that profit level that people want to acquire it, right? And they ignore the back end offer. I'm I've seen it almost borderline now becoming almost impossible to really truly make money on the acquisition on things like Facebook and whatnot without having a back end in place. Are you seeing the same thing?
Yeah, we are. Some of the brands, like, Sales Mentor for a while was like 125% liquidation. So we were making a little bit of money on the front. Intelligent Advertiser, which is the staffing firm, was probably close to 90% for a good long time. I think that there are like economies of scale, and sometimes you can do something when you have 10 clients a month, but when you go to 100 clients a month, the economics change, and what you're willing to tolerate changes. So I would agree with that. I think a big opportunity for people is pipeline. And when you can get a great pipeline locked in and you're nurturing people properly and there's real value exchange happening, then all of your numbers get easier, because in a given month, like let's take the month that we're in right now, fiscally, it's like the 1st through the 31st. You're going to have business coming in from your front end, new products. You're going to have repeat customers that were acquired in July that are buying new stuff. So right there, you have some profit potential. And then when your pipeline is dialed in, you're going to acquire clients from the last 14, 18, 24 months. So yeah, you need a back end, but you could probably make it work if you're nurturing and your pipelines are really set up correctly. You're just not going to be able to do that whole click to client in 20 hours BS that you could get away with in 2016, but you can't really get away with it the same today. And even if you could get away with it, it's not good business.
It's funny because I started an agency, and I didn't start an agency because it was a cool thing to do, right? I kind of fell into it. I had my own brand and I kind of just did a lot of consulting and fell into it and loved what I did. But now I kind of launched a coaching program because I'm starting to see the landscape changing a little bit, that I don't think a lot of businesses should hire an agency. For a couple of reasons. One is they don't have the foundations in place to actually, for it to make sense, right? For advertising to make sense. And then two, I see the space kind of changing a little bit where a lot of this is going to be in-house. In 2015, when I graduated in the early 2000s, if I got a job in marketing, it was data entry. You worked on Excel spreadsheets and you did it. Now, advertising and marketing is the social media channels. So everyone's starting to become that. And there's so much bad information out there. Do you you work with way more people than I do. Do you see that too? That there's just so much bad information out there and people think these advertising platforms are the magic pill for their business?
Yeah, I think they're just selling whatever's easy. Um, and I get it. I think that, like, especially if you're in a position where you just have to make something work, that there are disadvantages to capitalism from time to time. I know you're up in Canada. I'm in the US, and you have both citizenship, both places. So you probably have a really good depth of perspective, because Canada says that it's, not socialism, but it's basically socialism, where you can kind of protect the individual at sometimes at the expense of the gross machine. And I feel like down here, or like really anywhere where capitalism is kind of the main driver, you are going to have people who take advantage of the system. And I think that's what we're seeing inside of IM and the online space. And regulation hasn't hit us yet. I play in real estate. Most of my time right now is actually in the real estate world. It's like, man, I can't say certain things. I can't even use words sometimes. If people talk about the FTC, it's like, yo, have you heard of the SEC? Way more scary. Way more scary. The FTC will find you. The SEC, you're going to jail. So for me, when I look at internet people, I just see, like, it's just, you got a bunch of kind of lazy people who are taking advantage of a system that's not been regulated yet. And all of that will probably go away over the next 5 years, I would imagine. As private equity gets here, people are starting to realize the returns that are happening in this space. And then with the attention that comes from high profit, you also get the attention from regulators. And I think that it'll clean up a lot of stuff. But until we're there, it's like, yeah, it's kind of survival of the fittest on the consumer's part, where the consumer has to be, you have to teach consumers how to do due diligence. And That's a big opportunity. Like if you're a marketer or if you're someone that's doing an agency, imagine that as an asset. It's not a sales asset. It's like, let us teach you how to do due diligence and use this against us to help you make great decisions. All of a sudden, you start refining a trust that can't be built from good advertising. You're building a trust that is coming from you having the client's best interest at heart and proving it via the information you're giving them. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's like the J. Abrahams, I think, said it best: fall in love with your customers, not with your product.
Yep. Yep.
I want to zig a little bit and talk to you about something that I have zero concept about, and I'm going to use this as an opportunity to become perfectly mentored myself, and that's the world of NFTs, right? And I know you're playing it. I know you're very vocal about it. For me, I think I'm a smart person. I'm not a 90-year-old who doesn't know how to use my phone, and I'm tech savvy. I don't get it. I don't get what they are. I mean, I know what it stands for, but I don't get what they are. Help me, help the listeners. Like I just don't get it.
Yeah. So it's a little bit like learning what the internet was. If you were born in an era that didn't have internet, it was really hard. It was very difficult for people to understand or conceptualize the bigness of something like the internet. And we don't think about that enough. We grew up with access to different technologies. Like my grandfather is like, they didn't have cell phones. Like it's not the same thing. They have a difficult time conceptualizing the magnitude and gravity of it. I think it's the same with NFT technology, because for the first time in history, we have the ability to protect digital assets. We've never been able to do that. The blockchain is opening up different different use cases. We're discovering them by the day. So I tell people, this is where I start when I'm explaining this to people. There are two types of geniuses in the world, and we need to segment our lives down the middle so we understand where things go. The first type of genius is the inventor. It's the person who invented the tech, invented the machine, and they're brilliant in their own right, but they're oftentimes a little bit crazy too. You know who I'm talking about. You're Albert Einstein or you're Benjamin Franklin. The second type of genius is your use case application. They come in and they figure out new ways to develop the inventions. Like, so you look at Mark Zuckerberg and it's like, he's kind of like the second type of genius. And all of the CEOs that are around today, a lot of them are the second type of genius. They're not inventing. Elon Musk would be the exception to the CEO. He's on both sides. So what do we have to talk about with NFTs? First, we have to talk about what it is, the invention, the technology, and what it really is it's a one of one piece of property that exists in a different dimension, which is the internet or the blockchain, that can be immaculately protected, tracked, and properly placed based on ownership. That's what it is. JPEGs, sure. Music, sure. Any type of property that can be placed online, it would qualify into an NFT as long as it's non-fungible, which means you can't replicate it. It's one of one. Technically, let's talk about other use cases for NFTs for a second. Like a deed to a house is an NFT. When you go to pick up a sandwich, it's technically an NFT because there's really not a way to make it exactly like another sandwich. Like there's different, you know what I'm saying? Like anything that's one of one is an NFT. The problem is we've never had a way to actually prove that it's one of one or prove ownership of that without having all of these other resources tied up. So with brokerages and house deeds and liens and things like that, we have to go through an elaborate process to prove that you own the deed to your house, and then we store it in a place that is centralized and can be tampered with. And it's kind of like we're trying to get as far as we can go on a 1920s Model T. Like it's not designed for that. So where we're headed in the future is anything that is on the blockchain can be transferred from system to system or computer to computer or decade to decade. And it will show an infallible history of how it was earned, how it was created, where it was transferred for, was there money exchanged for it? So all of the middlemen are kind of getting pulled out because they're no longer necessary. In fact, the more people or humans you have involved in something, period, the higher the opportunity for fraud and manipulation and all of these things. So if I go buy a house and I had the option to either have a a broker involved, and then I signed so many of these contracts per month. I'm forgetting the name, but you know what I'm talking about, when it's the notary and all of these people that are involved to make sure it's legitimate. Or I could just put the deed or put the contract on the blockchain. I would pick the blockchain because it's trustless. It doesn't require humans to do their job, and it's infallible. You can't mess with it. What we're seeing right now is mostly NFTs are being used for art. That's just the first iteration. So these pictures of monkeys and cats and people and whatever, it's just art that's put onto the internet that has rules inside of the purchase of the art. But it's far safer to invest into these pictures online than it is to invest in real art, because there's zero opportunity for fraud. So even an art collection, 18, 20, $50 million, let's say you put into an art collection, it could be fraudulent. There's art fraud that happens on a daily basis. But when you invest into something that's online or that has the backing of the blockchain, there's zero chance for fraud. It can't be manipulated. It can't be edited. And then you're seeing like Gary Vee do some of this stuff where it's like you buy it on the blockchain, and then your physical representation of that piece of art is locked in a warehouse somewhere, and you can go get it if you want to. All right, I'll pause there to see if we have any questions.
I mean, I get the way you broke it down makes sense with the house and everything. Are we seeing though right now with, let's say, the artwork with like CryptoPunks? Like, I mean, these are no offense, but I mean, I think my kid could make something on the computer like that. Are we seeing how much of this right now is going to go to zero? And we're just seeing like mass people, like just like it's become cool, right? One person popularized it, made it cool. And it's like, oh, I want it. And it's almost becoming like, hey, I'm going to buy GameStop. I'm going to buy AMC because a bunch of people went on and started saying it. And most of them are going to probably lose their money and go to zero by doing that, because they're not savvy investors. They're just following a trend.
I think the answer is both. There's a lot of projects that are going to probably go to zero because there's nothing behind them that matters. But it's also not about the art anymore. It's about the ownership and access. So with crypto, like let's say that I wanted to raise $75 million for a private equity fund. And we're in marketing. This is a marketing podcast. We know how important the data is. We know how important targeting is, right? I don't want to buy a list of a bunch of, sorry for the language, but poor people who can't afford anything. They're unaccredited. You know what I mean? Would I rather market to raise that $75 million from a group of CryptoPunks holders, or would I rather market to just the general worldwide internet? But it's a no-brainer. If somebody's buying $300,000 picture of a JPEG,
they got money.
They likely have money. They likely are accredited due to the fact that they have money, and my percentage of funding is going to be way higher on that. So the only way to get into that crypto Discord is to have a CryptoPunks. There is no other way. I can't pay them money. I can't write a check. I buy the piece of art that goes in my wallet, and that wallet entitles me to access into the group of CryptoPunks holders. There's zero humans involved in that. Nobody checks me and lets me in. It is software that reads the contract in my wallet as an owner of CryptoPunks. I'm verified owner. I'm allowed into the group. Does that make sense?
Yeah. And then you go in there and you just build a relationship with them, like the old school way, build relationships with other CryptoPunk holders. And now you're part of the inner circle, I guess.
The inner circle of CryptoPunks?
Of the inner circle of accredited investors, or pretty much who own CryptoPunks.
Yeah, there's thousands of them. So it's different than like your marketing inner circles. But I mean, when you pay, like you can go pay.
So in your mind, you look at it completely different, right? Because and that strategy is awesome. I've never heard anyone talk about that strategy before. But you don't look at it as, I'm investing in this artwork because I love this artwork. It's going to go to $25 billion. It's the best investment ever. You looked at it as, cool, pay to play, get access into a world that I need for other things that I do with my life that I can make money off of.
Yes and no. Like some art, so I have NFTs that I own that I just really like the art. I think it's awesome. And then there are some NFTs that I have, and I don't care about the art. It's just because I want access to the Discord and the people that are inside that Discord.
But honest question: if I showed you a JPEG of that art before it was an NFT, right, and before NFTs were cool, and I showed you a picture of this artwork, and I'm like, hey man, for $2,000, I'll let you have this. would you still want it?
Let me have it as in transfer it to my wallet on the blockchain,
No.
or
There's no.
text it to me.
Yeah, I'm like, cool, man. Like here, like you're like, hey, I really love that picture that you just made. Cool, $2,000. It's yours.
Here's the problem. Let me fix your brain for a second.
Okay.
Here's the problem. You have not yet ascended to the place of understanding that the metaverse is a real place. We have to get there first. When you look at so there was a company that spent $2.5 million.
I saw for the digital plot of land. Yeah.
Yeah. So the future, at least the way that I think the future is looking, is there will be transactions and meetings and communities and things that only exist in the realm of the metaverse, for a lack of better words. It's like what it's being branded as. When imagine going to Amazon and looking for.
By the way, I feel like a grandfather listening to this conversation right now, and it's really disturbing to me.
It's good.
I think I'm a young hip person. I think I'm on. I think I understand things that are going on, and it's really
it's not about
like awful.
It's not about age. It's not about youth. It's about use case and really getting your brain wrapped around a new dimension that is being created. That's all that it is. Some people who are like 60 years old, they're like, oh, I can sort of understand that. It's like you look at their past and they're like a quantum mechanics person. They understand dimensions. People who don't understand dimensions they're just wrestling with it. But imagine you go to Amazon.com, you need a new coat, right? Great. Amazon's a great place. Right click it, save the picture. You own the coat. That's all. And you look at the picture of your coat while you're walking out freezing. How dumb does that sound?
Pretty dumb.
Pretty dumb. So having a picture of something does not indicate having ownership of the thing. Why? Because we're in the physical dimension, and having a picture of a coat is not the same as owning the thing that is, you see what I'm saying? Like the picture is just a representation. In the metaverse, you are in a real place. Having a picture of something does not equal ownership of the thing in the real place. And so if somebody's like, here's a picture for $2,000, do you want me to text it to you? No, because you're texting it in the physical dimension. I don't own anything. Can it go into the metaverse? Can it be seen in the metaverse? Can utility be accrued to the picture in the metaverse? Is there any benefit outside of seeing a picture of something in the metaverse? So like I have NFTs that earn in the metaverse, in the blockchain, they earn yields and they earn return. And I go convert those into forms of currency. It's like a piece of real estate that pays me money. So does your picture pay me money? Can I earn yield on it? Is there a sophisticated network effect behind it? Does it entitle me to talking to other rich people? I mean, imagine sitting down with me for 3 days in Nashville in our offices. Would that be beneficial to you? Yes or no?
Of course.
Okay. So here's the thing. Let's swap around the use case again. I have a picture of a bear. All right. And that bear is $11,000. But I think that bear is going to be worth $60,000 in the next 12 months. So I say, you can buy this bear not for $11,000, but for $30,000. And that $30,000 will entitle you to coming into Nashville for a day to spend with me. It's a good deal because you get to spend a day with me for $30,000. It's a good deal for me because I'm selling an $11,000 bear for $30,000. You come in, spend the day, 6 months, the bear is now worth $50,000. Pop quiz. How much did you pay for the day spent with me in my office?
I'm up 20 grand.
You made 20 grand to get a consulting day with me. Notice how this changes the use case of the entire world of commerce. Everything is free. Nothing is an expense anymore. There's a world here in the next couple of years where the Wall Street Journal and the New York Times and all of these brands that we pay to for subscriptions, we're paying to own their tokens. And the tokens entitle us to ownership of the brand itself. And when you collateralize that, then the fee that you pay to access the information is actually reversed. And I make money on the subscription. I make money on the documentaries or whatever it is. None of that's possible without the NFT technology that can actually say, okay, Jason bought it. He owns the token. It's a token in the metaverse and it entitles you to X amount of shares in the company. There's another use case.
So, I mean, will you now switch from buying real estate in the real world to now buying real estate in the metaverse?
No, not for a while. Maybe the next 30 years, 40 years, because there's always going to be utility in physical things. We're never probably going to outgrow that. Some people are really crazy and they think we're like headed to the matrix and stuff. And I don't necessarily think that that's true. I don't think that people will want to sleep in the rain or in a laboratory, or I don't think that's happening. So to me, it's both ands, but 70% of my wealth right now is locked up in real estate, because my thesis on real estate is that people are going to want to have a place to eat with friends and to like not freeze to death. Like that's a pretty good educated guess.
Okay, so backing off, because I could go down this rabbit hole for a second, and I have other places I want to take you. If someone wants to learn more about the metaverse, or they want to start learning more about NFTs, what's the best way for them? What's the best intro? Where would you tell them to start?
Twitter.
Okay, simple enough.
Yeah, just Twitter. Go through what I'm following and just follow everybody.
You talk a lot about all these concepts, and one of the things I had to learn as I grew in business and got more successful was that everything that I ever thought about money was wrong. Right? I had an awful money mindset. Things that I've been taught and raised and conditioned to believe about money were actually not true at all. When you start speaking to people who actually have a lot of wealth, what do you think is the right money mindset and the way to think about money?
Money is just a tool. It's something that was created and invented so that humans could trade resources. Goes all the way back to old tribalism. Like if you wanted to be part of the tribe, and you were a hunter, then you could bring your food, and then you could have access to the tribe because you paid for it via your skill set and contribution to the tribe. We're kind of in a middle hybrid situation right now because we invented currency, and we learned that we didn't have to trade like food or groceries or cattle. We could trade a thing called silver, and that silver had a price attached to it, so that 1,000 things of silver or tokens of silver could entitle us to X amount of houses. We had to figure that out so that we could evolve to specialization. Without the ability to use money, there's no specialization. We all have to do a little bit of everything. So I think that if we de-emotionalize it and we demystify it, all it comes down to is you have paper money or digital money, and there's no emotion, there's no fear, there's no greed. You take all of the emotions out of it. All it is a tool, and it entitles you to get things that you need or want as a part of the tribe.
And do you think most people are operating from like a scarcity mindset regarding money?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah.
And a lot of the advice you put out there is around building wealth. And I think there's an important distinction between getting rich and building wealth. In your mind, what's the difference?
Getting rich is being able to do the right things consistently so that your income is taken care of. You can buy whatever you want to buy. Being wealthy is when you actually own the right things. So I would classify rich is doing the right things, wealthy is owning the right things. And so the wealthy have their income and their time disconnected. And a lot of people online, they say they're wealthy, but then they work. And I'm not saying you can't work. I just think it comes down to, is work for you a fun thing, or is work for you something that you have to do to pay your bills? Wealthy people have escaped in every sense of the word from a monetary standpoint. I also think that there should be some caveats involved in the definition of wealthy to include happiness and fulfillment and peace. And you can have somebody who makes a ton of money, but they hate their lives. And it's like, is that true wealth, or is that just kind of you're back on the treadmill? You know what I mean?
Yeah. So then what's the game plan? I mean, what's the game plan to building wealth today? You also say that there are different levels of wealth. So we could talk about that too. But I mean, everyone wants passive income. Everyone wants to make money while they sleep. But what's the game plan to doing that in today's world?
You have to get your income fixed so that you have consistency. Nobody will ever. I sometimes I'll get into altercations mostly on Twitter because I'll talk about this and people will say, "Hey, I have $300. Like, how do I invest it?" I'm like, "Don't invest it. You have nothing. You need to make sure you can eat. And people don't like that because they think it's elitist. No, it's not elitist. It's actually just compassionate. You can't invest if you don't have consistent income. The only way for you to take the requisite risk exposure necessary to be a good investor is to have your bills paid, or else you cannibalize your investments by liquidating and paying for your bills. And so income is the first thing. You got to get your income consistent and locked in. Whatever that number is, 100K a year, 400K a year, 3 million a year, it does not matter. But you need consistency in your ability to produce income. From there, you have to guard surplus so that you're not eating all of it. I do see this a lot. People will get into one of our programs. They'll go from making 50 grand a year to $1 million a year. And all of a sudden, after 12 months, they're now spending $1 million a year. And it's
they got a 2 million lifestyle all of a sudden.
Like you're eating your surplus. You can't do that either. So you take your surplus and you put it into capital storage vehicles. The truly wealthy people, they're not necessarily obsessed with returns. That's not what we're obsessed with. What we're obsessed with is risk exposure and capital storage. Can I take this $100,000 or $1 million? Can I put it into a vehicle that is very, very high certainty to not lose money? I don't want to lose money. This is where your Warren Buffetts and Ray Dalios and these guys come into play. When you have somebody who's like a wealth expert and they're teaching you to go after the highest yielding things, right away they're not wealthy. They're chasing income is what they're chasing. So you got to have time, 10 years, 15 years, 20 years, 25 years, like the long haul, consistently putting surplus into storage vehicles that aren't going to lose and that pay a yield. That yield could be 5%, 8%, 12%. It doesn't matter. But if the yield is 300%, it's a good chance that what goes up can quickly come back down, and you're probably not fully safe in your risk exposure. Does that make sense?
100%. Would you say NFTs are high risk at this moment?
1,000%, like incredibly high risk. Yes.
So if someone's listening right now and they got money to invest, you would tell them start with real estate over an NFT.
I'd probably tell them to start with, like a mixture of whole life insurance, a little bit of real estate. And it
I love that you say that, because I don't think people talk about whole life insurance enough. I'm a big fan of it. I think that was my first real investment when we started making money, is for the families putting in there and make sure that goes, because I don't think people talk about, I'd love to hear your thoughts on this. I think the way to really get success is with compounding, right? The magic of compounding, anything that compounds. And I think people ignore that when it comes to their business, right? They try to go all in on one tactic versus getting incrementally better in 5 different areas of their business and then watching that compound over the next 3 years. You've seen tons of businesses. Would you agree with that?
Yeah. With compounding?
Yeah.
Yeah. 100%. I also think anybody who can count is going to be a fan of whole life insurance at a certain point. And I think that's it's facts. You just have to look at the math on it. I do think as well, we're talking about NFTs. There are some guys that will message me and ask me for advice, and they're big names in the internet marketing space, and they want to know how money works because they've just learned marketing. They haven't learned money. And I'll dive into it with them because I'm like, I want to have a handful of people that, like, not because I'm getting equity or anything like that. I want to have a handful of people because I know that they have a powerful message and I want to invest in them and help them get to the next level. And I'll get really frustrated because they'll have 90% of their net worth in NFTs. And I'm like, you're screwed. Like, you have no idea what you're talking about in anything. Like, don't talk about finances at all. You're financially illiterate because you're putting all of this capital into something that rises and falls with the sun. And so whole life is great. Real estate is great. And when it comes down to it, if you're going to invest in an NFT project or a new token or whatever, a new currency, make sure that it is asymmetric. Like, you either need a 0% chance of loss or as close as you can get, or if there's high risk, you need 20,000x returns to justify the risk you're putting in. Now, if people would think like more data driven about their investments, they'd be fine. They would just probably they probably wouldn't have 9 million in NFTs at a 5 million a year income. They would have 400,000, and they would be harvesting the capital from that, reinvesting it into other vehicles. And it's a game, and you learn how to play the game, and you earn the right to invest into speculative things because you're not going to feel it if you lose.
So I think you're giving a lot of advice. That's incredible. And, I know one of the things that's important to you is legacy, right? And playing for legacy. I think I'm fascinated by this area because, you know, I f- do you think I'm trying to figure out how to phrase this. I meet coaches all the time who sit there and say they want to help people, they want to help people, they want to help people. But the truth is they want to make money. Does it go hand in hand? Like, because that's a hard thing for me to reconcile at some point too, because it's like, yeah, I love legacy. I want to be able to say I helped a lot of people achieve their freedom and do all that. But it comes on the back of me building my financial freedom too. Right. So how do you play with how do you balance that in your head? I don't know if that even made sense.
Yeah. Well, it is difficult to help people at a certain level unless they are paying money, because we've all been a part of free educational materials and we don't care about them. What doesn't cost you typically doesn't command your attention. So there's something to be said if you truly want to help people. There's something to be said for commanding a price for that, so that the information turns into implementation. And if there's no price, typically it'll just sit in the information stage. I also think that there is, for me at least, a lot of the information and a lot of the education or mentoring that I am a part of today, I had to pay a lot of money to receive it. And I think that it reveals a level of people's desire. Like I don't like socialism. I don't like having to arbitrarily just put everything out into the world, regardless of whether somebody cares or doesn't care. And I think that we have a responsibility to explain to people why we're charging money, explain to people why the things that we're creating are being delivered at a cost. And at the end of the day, what you realize is that my team is only possible because people pay me money. My team allows us to provide a better product. The products Elon Musk is creating and the products that Gates has created over the years, like all of that comes because there was money funding the R&D and the team and the implementation. Without that, there's no excellence in the product. And so sometimes I think if we gave everything away for free because we wanted to help people, well, we wouldn't be helping people because we wouldn't have anything to give away. There wouldn't be anything to deliver. So it's quite mathematical. It's not really an emotional thing for me. It's just kind of math.
You and I, we haven't really talked much before this podcast. So we bumped into each other at a couple events, but I love the way your brain works, and I think I'm in line, and I think kind of the same way, except that you understand this whole metaverse way better than I than I do at this point. But aside from that, I think the listeners would probably benefit from learning these wealth building tactics from you. And you were kind enough, I don't even know if you realize this, to give a free gift to the listeners. They're all getting, anyone who messages you get 3 days in your office, right? The 3 days for a $10,000 bear. No.
No.
I'm joking. But you were kind enough to give everyone access to your net worth and asset training, which I'll link up and put in. So talk a little bit about that so people understand what they're going to click on and get.
Yeah, it was a training I did for one of the
you don't like the 3 days in your office, me giving everyone access for 3 days.
Anybody can come. We'll just we'll work out the details with Gabe's afterwards. Yeah, I think the net worth training, if I'm remembering correctly, is just a training I gave to a group of elite clients maybe last summer about kind of how we're building out our financial machine. And so I think it's about an hour and a half long, and it's pretty good. It's a good training.
Awesome. Taylor, man, thank you so much for doing this. Let's give you some plugs for people who want to learn more and pay you to learn that more, or even just follow you along your journey. How can they find you?
If you go to taylorawelch.com/links, LINKS, that'll take you to kind of a master list of projects that I've got going. Obviously, follow me on Twitter. Look me up on Facebook. We have a new Facebook group called Levels of Wealth. That's pretty amazing. A lot of people are getting value there. There's a good group of my network inside of that group as well. I think that is on the taylorawelch.com/links. So just go there and we'll make sure everything's on that page. You can kind of source through whatever I've got going on.
Awesome. Thank you so much for doing this. Really appreciate you.
You got it. Thanks for having me.
Hey everyone, thank you so much for watching this video. If you want, check out our most recent video over here. And this one is the one YouTube thinks you'll like. But if you really enjoyed watching, please do me a favor, like and subscribe over here. Thank you so much.